So we reviewed all the fights, over 2 hours of content. Over 2 hours of content on the fights alone for this Freedom 250 card. They're all in a playlist on the channel, along with some of my very correct and also a couple of very wrong predictions as well. But this video here is going to be sort of a general review of the event as the dust settles on Freedom 250 and looking at the card as a whole, what we liked, what we didn't like, and a little on each of the fights, little on production, little bit of this, little bit of that. And it's almost time to say goodbye to the Whitehouse chapter of UFC. And I say almost, because I think we as fans, UFC fans, MMA fans, we should enjoy this and sort of savor the moment a little and not just immediately jump to the next event, the next numbered card, the next super fight, the next thing and the next thing. Because the UFC Whitehouse card is a huge part of UFC history. You look at the history of the sport and the political campaign that once aimed to shut down UFC can't get sanctioned, bar for a few states here and there. And now it's arrived at the front door of the government, the front door of the president, and everybody's talking about it. It's just an incredible trajectory for a sport that's, you still forget that it's only 30 years old. 33 years. Just insane. Man, what a time. What a time to be a fan of the sport. But back to the beginning, okay, of the card, not the card being announced, just the event itself being announced. It sort of hung over the UFC the entire time. Since its announcement, everybody had then fantasy booked their own card. We then heard the card, we saw the card, and since then we've been anticipating the event. And it's been this sort of checkpoint, this marker on the calendar that we've all looked forward to, and we've, they booked this card perfectly. And I know this is recency bias, it's just happened and we all enjoyed it. When it got announced at UFC 326, we all kind of looked at it and thought, where were the title fights? Trump said 8 or 9 title fights. Now, I don't think anybody was really expecting that or thought that that was actually coming. But we did think, Elia and Islam or Jones and Pereira, like these were the fights that we thought were coming. But building a card to achieve both entertainment, historical significance on top of that, no matter really what the result was, an absolute masterstroke. And whether they meant it or not, it felt like there was a little bit of damage control after the fights were announced, because you started hearing, well, we were trying for this and this fell through and we had this planned, but the money wasn't there, whatever. I don't even care if they planned it this way. I don't care if they tripped, stumbled and fell into it, because the product that we seen on the screen come fight time delivered. It 100% delivered. The fights were amazing. I do have a problem with one. But look, if we're just judging this based on fights and entertainment values, 7 for 7. 7 fights, 7 finishes, 7 knockouts. Every fight on the card had a knockout. Has that ever been done before? Every single fight on the card had a knockout. Just wild. But before we briefly recap the fights, let's start at the end, naturally. Both of the main events, the main and co-main, double upset. Gan beats Pereira via unscrupulous methods that we'll discuss and probably crash out over. Gaethje beats Topuria, which also there might be a crash out for that too, but not for the same reasons as Gan and Pereira. Two of the three biggest stars in the UFC right now, the third being Islam Makhachev. We're not counting Conor McGregor, because does he really count as being part of the roster? He kind of feels bigger than UFC itself. But from the active roster, you have 2 of your 3 guys, 2 of the 3 heads on the Cerberus lose. Not only in quick succession, not only on the same night, but back to back, one after the other, in a couple of hours, in front of probably the biggest live audience in UFC history. there will be people that have never watched UFC before or haven't watched in a long time. They're looking at the biggest stars to deliver. They're asking their friends who are still invested in the product and who have still been keeping up with it, who are the biggest guys? Like, who are they building around, basically? And everyone would have went for Alex Pereira and Ilia Topuria. You know, all the promotion went into Pereira with 3 belts. All the promotion went into, you know, Ilia Topuria with a white rose meant for Justin Gaethje. And in one night, and not even one, in a couple of hours, all of their plans scuppered. In a couple of hours, the future of UFC's business went straight down the old porcelain throne. Pereira challenging Aspinall for the undisputed gold is now off the table right now. Here's hoping it can come back. We'll get to what the future holds for Poatan. But also the matchup between Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria at welterweight, that's now off the table for the foreseeable future. You know, I just had a video talking about repurposing the claw, and I said that we should put it in the Bernabeu for Ilia versus Islam. And that's now unlikely to ever happen because I think Islam will probably retire before it's even a possibility. So, you know, Pereira and Topuria back to back. And look, underdog stories are great. They are. But they're great in a vacuum. Because what does this actually mean for UFC now going forward? Just looking at this story alone of Justin Gaethje getting the belt, it's terrific. But what does this do for future matchmaking? What does this do for future cards? What does this do to, you know, I don't want to focus solely on the hype train, so to speak, but look, we need to talk about these things because that's just the future and that's where we're going. We, of course, where we are going. Now, we'll look at the heavyweight situation first. Now that Cyril Gane, provided that Cyril Gane doesn't get his second title fight in a row now reversed to a no contest, because we counted on my fight review, I've seen people go higher than this, but on my review, 9 out of 11 elbows and hammer fists after the knockdown were illegal strikes. Remember the number. Spread the number. 9 of 11 illegal strikes to the back of the head. You'll remember there was a couple beforehand. Before the elbows started, there was another couple of illegal strikes. But just from the first elbow to when Pereira makes it back to the feet, 9 out of 11 illegal strikes. Whilst Herb Dean stands there, thumb up his arse, doing fuck all and nothing. He should be fucking fired, right? I'm just going to say it right now. And we'll get, like... Oh... And we'll get to Mark Goddard as well, because Herb Dean is not the only person who had an absolute shocker. Mark Goddard seeking advice and then completely ignoring it. Doctor says he can't fight. Fuck off out the cage, mate. Like, the pair of these referees, if their name was Mario Yamasaki, they would never referee in the UFC ever again. Fact. By the way, Dana White, Mr. Fighter Safety, saying nothing about any of this. Mark Goddard. We just spoke a little bit about Herb Dean and his tolerance for just watching someone, like, he wants to see someone die in the cage, apparently. Why else would you let that go? But Mark Goddard, you call the doctor over and you ask for his professional assessment, please. He tells you that Topuria cannot continue. You hear Alejandro Topuria say that he can't see. You hear the doctor tell you he can't see. And then you tell everyone else, I'm going to let this play out, completely ignoring the advice of the doctor which you asked for to protect the fighter. The corner audibly saying he can't see. And you still send him out for round 4. Imagine he knocked out Justin Gaethje in round 4 and Gaethje reviews the tape and sees that the fight should have been stopped. Fucking disgrace. You sent a blind guy out there to fight Justin Gaethje. Come round 4, come the end of round 4, he needed help to the corner. He couldn't find the stool to sit down. He needed help back to the corner. That is illegal also. Automatic into the fight. You still let it go until Alejandro Topuria waved the fight off. You fucking prick. Jason Herzog. Another one. Not exactly culpable tonight, but he did, in fact, step in early for O'Malley versus Zahabi. We'll just call it what it is. But let's not forget the fact that prior to Cyril Gane versus Tom Aspinall, he went into the changing room, all on video, by the way. All on video. You can find it if you want to. He walked in there and told the world heavyweight champion of the UFC that cheating works and expect it to happen. Get the fuck out of the sport if you cannot protect the fighters. Fuck. When will any of these referees be held accountable for anything? The fuck is it going to take? Is it genuinely going to take somebody to die in there without Dana White doing anything about this? Jesus Christ. People should be calling for the head of Herb Dean, Mark Goddard, Jason Herzog after these incidents. They're going to get somebody fucking killed because they're not willing to protect the fighter, because they're unwilling and unable to enforce the rules to protect the fighters. Where was I? Oh yeah, fuck those referees. Get Beltran in here with a beard and let it hang. None of this tucking into the shirt bullshit. I'm agitated now. Where was I? Genuinely now, I've lost the plot. Underdog stories, the impact. Okay, so provided that doesn't get reversed, which I doubt that it will, but we can all hold out hope. Provided that this doesn't get turned into a no contest, which it should, they change the finishes for head clashes. When a head clash leads to a finish, they reverse it to a no contest because they're illegal. The only difference here is that Pereira is such a dog, he was able to stand back up. That is his crime. His crime is being able to stand back up again. That's going to be the excuse as to why nothing happens and this is seen as acceptable. He should be dead right now. And fuck anybody not calling this out. Commentary, fucking mute. Talking about how good Gane looks. He is a fucking cheating prick. Call what's in front of your eyes, provided he doesn't poke them. But now, provided that Pereira stays at heavyweight and all the results are as they stand right now, UFC will try and give him Hokit. And I said this in my Pereira review, actually, where you can look at light heavyweight if you want, but like, what does it really prove? Beating all the guys that you already beat, you're then waiting on Alberg to come back a year from now. And honestly, I still believe that Pereira can become the triple champ. I really do. Call it cope if you want. I've went on a rant about referees. But he is genuinely, like, beating Hokit and either Volkov or Pavlovich away from a title fight. And he signed an 8-fight deal with now 7 fights left, provided that it's just an 8-fight deal and those 8 fights didn't get added on to his existing one. Okay, so provided that it was an 8-fight deal, solely 8 fights, he has 7 left. He's 2 wins away from a title fight. So all this has really done is kind of mess up the timeline a little. But do I dare bring up the name Glover Teixeira, the head coach, won the belt pretty late on in his career too. So there's many MMA theories that Poatan just does not abide by. So look, why not this one as well? He's faced adversity before. He can bounce back. I have unwavering faith that he can get this done. And I hope he faces Cyril Gane again, and I hope he knocks him the fuck out. Seriously. And I actually want more people in the corner to not abuse the referee, right? Don't do that, but actually call him out for his bullshit in the cage and confront him there and then. Seriously, because what the actual fuck? They have videotape at the side that the referee can look at. They do it for low blows, they do it for all this other stuff. Why have we not got video assistant refereeing to call out these fouls? Why do we not have it? Ridiculous. As for Ilia Topuria, I mean, you thought he was inactive before. And that was when he barely took any damage. He would still take a year off. Now, after what appears to be a fractured orbital, that's what Dr. X is saying. True professionals, I know. But look, Dr. X is also saying that he won't need surgery, which I suppose is a good thing. But look, Topuria is going to be out for another year. Realistically, that's how long it's going to be. And for all the people laughing at him, Paddy Pimblett, seriously, laughing at Ilia Topuria, your best win is Tony Ferguson on a 6-fight slide. And Michael Chandler, who got highlight reeled in the first round by Hoofy. It took you 3 rounds to beat a guy who was desperate to quit. The fuck? So I don't know who you're laughing at, mate. Seriously. Islam Makhachev or Ali Abdelaziz, more to the point. I won't talk about Makhachev. All I'm saying is Ian Gary has more of a chance than you think against Islam Makhachev. That's all I'm saying. And Ian Gary beating Makhachev might be the best chance we get at getting Topuria versus Islam. So, in a weird roundabout way, we might all just be supporting Ian Gary come the time for that fight. But as for Topuria, I was literally talking about moving the claw to a stadium for Ilia versus Islam. For the welterweight title. The welterweight title. But now it's looking likely he's going to take a year off, and you can't really predict a next opponent for him because you don't know what shape the division's going to be in. You don't know who's going to win, who's going to lose, where people are going to be in a year's time. You don't even know who the champion's going to be. Gaethje is probably going to retire. I think he almost let it slip in an interview. I think Bisping asked him, who's the next contender, and he almost had to stop himself. He was just like, I don't know if I'm, and then he just stopped. So what I believe his intrusive thoughts were saying was, I don't even know if I'm going to be here to defend the belt, basically, is what I think he was getting at. If I was him, I would look to retire, because when you look at that next line of contenders, I know everyone wants Arman Tsarukyan to get that title shot. He's not going to. He won't, because UFC hates Arman Tsarukyan. He ain't getting the title fight. And to be honest, you don't beat Dan Hooker a year ago, do some streams with Neon, and get a title fight. It just doesn't happen. The win over Oliveira was so long ago now. It was at UFC, 300? Around then? And we're coming up to 329. So, I mean, come on. The win over Oliveira was so long ago, and Oliveira's gotten better since then. And it was a split decision, and people thought Charles won then. So, to me, personally, I think Oliveira's getting the next title fight against Gaethje, should he choose to keep fighting. And not to bring down the mood, congratulations to Justin Gaethje. Massive win. Greatest win of his career. Greatest win. I mean, it's a huge upset, huge underdog story. It's tough to actually rank it amongst the all-time wins, but given the odds and what people expected to happen, people thought that, Khamzat was going to dominate Strickland and hold him down for 5 rounds, that was the level of domination. Nobody gave Strickland a chance. This is different because people thought that people weren't even giving Gaethje a round. That was the question. It was over, under, a round. I think the bet, it was over, under 1.5 rounds. So that's the level of underdog we're talking here. And not to bring down the mood, incredible accomplishment. But if round 4, Ilia Topuria, who's already blind, and you just eye poked again, referee done nothing, good job. If that Ilia Topuria can take you down and get to mount with ease, no drama, you are going to get body locked, taken down, and subbed by Charles Oliveira in a round. Sorry. True. You know, like, he's not going to try and go chin for chin like Ilia Topuria just did with you. You know, that ended, for Charles Oliveira, that mindset of just like walking forward and, you know, take one to give one, I'll hit you and then try and get the sub from there. No, that's over. That ended with Ilia Topuria when he got knocked out badly. Charles, you've seen a change in his style. No more bullshit, no more unnecessary damage. He's going to take you down and sub you. Gamrot found that out because he believed in his ability to then fight back up, and he's a good wrestler. So he tried to fight with Oliveira on the ground, left openings, got subbed. Holloway didn't trust his wrestling, didn't try to get up, just lay there for 5 rounds and hung on for dear life so he could not get subbed. And that's the 2 outcomes. Pick one, the red pill or the blue pill. One, you get subbed in the first round. The other, you get held down for 25 minutes because Oliveira is the highest level grappler in the sport along with Islam Makhachev. Different styles, different expertise in grappling, but the umbrella term of grappling, including wrestling and submission, into account, you cannot compete with that. And Islam has a win over Oliveira, so if you want to say Islam's the best, okay, sure. He subbed Charles. Granted, he was rocked at the time, but just pure grappling, Oliveira, one of the best of all time, and you're getting taken down by a blind guy in round 4. You know what I mean? But if I was Gaethje, and of course I am not, I would decide to hang it up. Personally, it won't get any better than that. This high that you are on right now is the peak. It is Mount Everest. It is incredible. What a victory. And it would be wise to leave on that. He got the double bonus as well. He got an extra 800k on top of tonight's pay and a free truck from Arman Sarukian. So if Gaethje then retires, we might see Arman go against Charles Oliveira because UFC will probably fancy Charles to beat Arman because, I mean, Oliveira, he's beaten everybody else. So why not Arman Sarukian? So, well, Oliveira's beaten everybody else except for one guy. Diego Lopez. He got our night started, and by the way, weighed in at 155 as well. It looks as to obviously be an alternate for that title fight. It looks as though he's eyeing up a move to lightweight. And now, with the race for the title blowing wide open, he could be looking at just like a title elimination bout when he moves up, because he's the number 2 featherweight. Of course, lighter man skill, we all know. UFC love him as well, and he was able to make weight twice in one night for 2 divisions. You know what I mean? He was the alternate for the title fight. He was the alternate for the main event. They trust him. And I can see him getting a really favourable matchup when he moves to lightweight. But could he be looking at a Charles Oliveira fight? Would that be too much? You know, who knows? But I think it's a possibility. You know, I think he should be looking at a top 5 opponent at least. I was a really big proponent of him versus Max Holloway, but we'll need to just see what happens with Max and Conor. But after Lopez just walked through Steve Garcia, just walked through all of those shots like they were nothing, just like he walked through Gene Silva's punches and Volkanovski and everybody, he just walks through them. I would be very interested to see him at lightweight and hopefully against somebody in that top 5. Thing is, it's majority grapplers though. So, I mean, we'll just need to wait and see what happens, which is my favourite phrase on the channel, but we'll just need to wait and see. I could see him maybe sticking around at featherweight if Evloev beats Volk. If Evloev beats Volkanovski and takes that belt, I could see Lopez maybe staying because they had a close fight. Lopez took it on short notice, and I think UFC would love to run that back for the title, because who else can Evloev really face with any interest whatsoever? He's already just beaten Lerone Murphy. If he beats Volk, Volk will probably retire or give lightweight one last shot before he does. So if Evloev wins, I could see him staying at featherweight. Otherwise, the only real fight for Lopez is Yair Rodriguez. Where the fuck is Yair Rodriguez? How is he still so highly ranked? Can we finally get this matchup? It has been years now. Where is he? And in fact, the only other thing left for Diego Lopez is Lerone Murphy. I just mentioned his name there. But it's kind of like Alex Pereira and Carlos Ulberg at light heavyweight. Like, sure, they're both highly ranked. Sure, you could make that fight. But who really cares? You know, who's really clamouring for it? At least there's some heat to the Yair Rodriguez and Diego Lopez fight. But him versus Lerone Murphy, you know, does anyone really care? For me, I think Diego Lopez is only going to really stick around if it's Movsar, Yair, or nothing. So basically, a move to lightweight is probably on the cards in the near future. Hopefully he gets to fight someone in the top 5. See if Gaethje lost. Gaethje versus Lopez, man, that would have been a banger. But, I mean, that would have just been a meeting of matter and antimatter. Two chins, going chin for chin, literally, and wow, that would have been a barn burner. But that has fight of the night written all over it. But in this one here for Lopez, Steve Garcia was hanging in there. You know, he didn't really look out his depth. This is the highest level that Garcia had come up against. He didn't, you know, it didn't look like he was drowning out there. He was on the front foot. He had Lopez backed up. But when it was when Lopez actually started to move forward, he then got success. He's, of course, still eating all of the shots from Garcia as he's moving forward. Absolutely no head movement whatsoever. And it worked for him, so much so that Ilya tried it in the main event. But then he started to land more. Big left hand, dropped Garcia, and Garcia then springs back up. Lopez follows it up with a 3-piece, puts him down, and then follows up with ground and pound to put him out cold. Great win for Lopez. And he went out to the fans at the Ellipse, as it called, on the stage, and got a big ovation, thoroughly deserved. And was so down to come back for the main event as well. He said, if anybody pulls out, I'll be ready. Give me a call. That is the kind of spirit right there that we love. So shout out to Lopez. But next up, Bo Nickel dominates Kyle Dawkins, and Bo, for the large majority of the fight, just laying on top, finding it impossible to move because Dawkins is on bottom, body locked up, just got the body triangle locked in, and he just held Bo Nickel's head into his chest and just waited and prayed for a stand-up. He finally got what he wanted, and then Bo Nickel, man. Bo Nickel must have been watching some of his Anderson Silva fights, because he reached into the bag of tricks. Anderson Silva versus Vitor Belfort, when Anderson Silva just bang popped that front kick up and knocked out Vitor, Bo Nickel threw up his own front kick. He didn't quite get the knockout from it, but it was Spider-esque, channeling his inner Anderson Silva. And yes, I am saying these words out loud. Bo Nickel channeled his inner Anderson Silva. Landed the front kick sort of glancing. You know, it wasn't really full power, wasn't a knockout blow, but he landed enough of it to then follow it up with a 2-piece and put down Kyle Dawkins for the win. 2 KOs in a row now for Bo Nickel. And why am I all of a sudden enjoying Bo Nickel? I want to, like, when this guy turned up at the press conference and he had no beard and a full head of hair, you're looking at him going, who is this guy? And now he comes back with a bald head and a beard and he turns into Anderson Silva. What an absolute savage. I want to see this guy retire Adesanya. You know, Anderson Silva passed the torch on to Israel Adesanya. Israel Adesanya is going to pass the torch on to Bo Nickel. I'm seeing people talk about Ateba Gutierrez. and there being, a passing of the torch. They're looking at the African connection, so to speak, and they're looking for this passing of the torch moment from one African middleweight to another, even though Adesanya's represented China and New Zealand and, whatever. And they are right, we are going to pass the torch and we are going to get that moment. Oh yeah, we are certainly going to be passing the torch on, all right, to the next pound for pound number one kickboxer at middleweight, fucking Bo Nickel. I could not believe he threw up that front kick and it actually landed. And it's in such close proximity to the finish that it's going to make the highlight reel. He just got that head kick KO and now he has this front kick. Bang, bang, two-piece, done. Shout out to Bo Nickel. More of these performances, please. And I'm asking for a lot. I'm asking for more of these performances. I'm also asking that you plead with the UFC to give you that Adesanya fight. I will laugh if Bo Nickel is the one to retire Israel Adesanya. It seems so fitting. It will be the funniest thing ever. And Adesanya, man, is just going to be some guy in a pub when Bo Nickel is retired and a legend. And Izzy will be sitting there saying, that guy beat me one time and he was really good. Shout out to Bo Nickel. Next up, Hoofe versus Chandler. I'll keep this one brief. Can Chandler please retire? And you know what? Let's do a 2-for-1 special. Derek Lewis, can you please retire also? Like, Michael Chandler's in great shape. He is, truly, right? When you look at him, he is in tremendous shape. He does his CrossFit every day. But when you look at him, he's moving slower. He looks more scared than ever. He spent half this fight running from Hoofe. And then on the inverse side of that, Lewis spent half his time plodding bow-legged. The other half was spent on the mat. And I just pray that these guys call it a day. You've made money. You've had a great career. But it's time, Bruce Buffer says that it's time. And looking at Hoofe, he should probably fight Pimblett after the BSD fight. I'm presuming BSD will win. I don't really want to see him face a guy with a takedown threat like BSD has. Paddy has good subs, but he has to get you on the ground first, and his actual takedowns are either pretty weak or just non-existent, depending on how he feels during the fight. Never really went for a takedown on Justin Gaethje, even though it was his best route to success. Didn't even bother. Ended up losing. That's just kind of how it goes. But Hoofe looked really good. And then again, he was against Chandler. But look, what else is he supposed to do? He wanted the spinning wheel kick finish. And it was close. But he had to settle for punches after it landed. He threw a couple of the spinning kicks, but he had to settle for a couple of punches. And Chandler just kind of folded up and quit. That's how it goes. But nice win for Hoofe. Hopefully a step up in competition. He can't really fight lower down the rankings. We went over that in the actual fight review for that. So if you haven't seen that, go watch it. We discuss more about what's next for Hoofe. But now, Hokit, we need to get you in a jiu-jitsu class, man. Because what was that armbar? Hokit, he's 10-0. He's top 5 in the world in his weight class. And he has no idea how to apply an armbar. Is that not just insane? But he's managed to work his way into title elimination territory. We'll see if he gets the Poatan fight or maybe a Pavlovich. Volkov should just sit out for the title fight. He's been the rightful number one contender ever since he got robbed by Cyril Gane. All he's done in that fight and since then is win. So we'll see what happens with him. And I'll just mention this now, whilst we're here and we've covered these last couple of fights, because I don't have anything else to say on the Hokit Lewis beat or the Hoofe Chandler beat, besides the fact that Hokit somehow cursed the main event matchups. Again, I spoke about that in the fight review. You can go and watch that. All those fight reviews are really good videos, but I'll just make mention of this now, seeing as we've come to a lull in the action. The live music was on fire all night, and I understand the argument for the Gaethje entrance and the live rendition of Johnny Cash being Walkout of the Night. Sean O'Malley's entrance as well, that walkout. I don't know the name of the lead singer, and John Anik said her name as well, but I can't remember it. She was amazing. Top tier walkout for O'Malley too, on top of Gaethje's. But none more so, none better, nothing comes close to Josh Hokett walking out there to Real American. Hulk Hogan's theme song being played at the Whitehouse for Hokett's entrance, genuinely moment of the night for me. Unironically, huge pop out of abs. Like, see when you're not expecting it and you hear that intro and you're like, oh my god, is that Hulk Hogan's theme song? And then you see him marching out there, flanked by, I'm pretty sure, a guy in a wheelchair and someone else. They had these like veterans and these like first responders and servicemen and stuff like that with the fighters during the walkouts. It was, you know, a nice touch, paying tribute to America, I suppose. But that entrance, and it was a live rendition as well. They used the band for it. Perfect choice. And obviously the band just made it even better that it wasn't just piped in through the speakers, but it was the actual live band that made the performance what it was. Tremendous. Just so good. And also, whilst we're outside of the cage, Mark Zuckerberg showing off the meta glasses that is going to help blind people. Like, and I suppose during the show, actually, they had these like AI slop videos that told the story of America. Nice touch, I suppose, if you're into that sort of thing. But they had Mark Zuckerberg also giving these glasses to blind people to help them see. Yes, this is a real sentence. I don't know if it's just for partially blind people or people with 100% blindness. I know this sounds absolutely ridiculous that a 100% blind person can put on meta glasses and somehow see. I could look it up to see if it's fully blind or partially blind, but I won't. You know, I don't care that much. But an incredible feat of engineering, no matter the case, from the Zuck, partially blind, fully blind, whatever. That is insane that you can help people like that. So I wish Zuckerberg would use his powers for more good like this instead of some of the other stuff. But also, in fact, final thing outside of the cage. See at the start of the night when it's still daylight and the jets fly overhead and you can see, right, Donald Trump and Dana White are standing there at the top of the steps and you can see on Dana White's face, this is everything he imagined that it would be. The sense of pride on Dana White's face as those jets go flying and he's like, oh man, what the fuck, right? Like, he is so proud of himself and he should be proud of this. This show, this event, I think show is probably more appropriate, was amazing. And yes, I keep mentioning recency bias, but this is a genuine contender for best UFC event of all time. From whatever metric you want, historical note, production, anticipation, the hype leading into it, the fights themselves, 7 fights, 7 knockouts. We'll see what number this does in terms of an audience, and I hope that it does really well. I hope that it breaks that 17 million, because the effort that went into this was Herculean. And I hope that they get rewarded for it, because that's how we'll get cool stuff like this again. If they see that it's worth their while to put all this money into promotion, to do all this cool stuff, this outside of the box thinking, then we'll get more of it. And see if this became a yearly thing, a bi-yearly thing, something that you can look forward to again in the future. It benefits the sport so much, and I'm not saying that we're going to go to the Whitehouse every year. Dana White's already said it's too expensive for him to run again. But Cyril Gane and Tom Aspinall talk about fighting in Paris. We can't put this thing in front of the Eiffel Tower. You know, we can't do something. It doesn't have to be the White House. Usyk and Verhoeven, just Pyramids of Giza, something, and just to sort of change up, not exactly the mundane nature of things, but you I'm not even going to talk about the Apex, right? You get sick of looking at the Apex, but can we maybe change out one of these T-Mobile arena shows and do something cool like this? Just a thought, just a suggestion, because this was really cool. And again, almost round the elbow to get to the rest, we'll find the point. Rousey and Carano done 17 million, just based on what it was and the spectacle and such. I hope that this at least matches that number, if not clear it. I hope that it at least gets close. I know that Paramount has less subscriber base than Netflix does, but I hope that this pulls in a number that makes it worth their while, to where they can look at the Claw and use it again and put more fights in these cool settings and stack the card, couple of big title fights. I think it's really beneficial for the sport, isn't it? I think every single fan, maybe barring a couple of actual fight results, loved this event on the whole. So I think people were probably a little upset that Gan beat Pereira, myself included, of course. People weren't expecting Gaethje to beat Topuria, but I don't think anybody's bitter about it. I don't think anybody's mad at it. There will be some Topuria fans pissed. I'm a Topuria fan. I'm not pissed at the result. I'm pissed a little bit at the refereeing, that he was allowed to go back out there, because that just shouldn't be on. But I think it's incredible what Justin Gaethje was able to do. But yeah, more cool stuff like this. I hope they get their rewards for this, because it was incredible. But look, we'll end with some in the octagon talk, some actual fighting action. The Sugar Show is back, and we're ending on a high note because we've spoken about everything else. And look, we'll just get right into it. Sean O'Malley beats Eamon Zahabi after a kind of slow round one, but he picked it up towards the end of round two, or I suppose the end of the fight when he got the finish. But round one he started a little slower and came back out for round two, got that finish, and when he knocked out Eamon Zahabi, the walk-off KO, he turned around and started doing the salute. And he done it all in front of Eamon Zahabi's brother and GSP in his corner. That is just... good grief. He might have put himself in title contention. That's all I'm saying. I mean, people were asking for him to fight Peter Yan, myself included. I want to see that fight over 5 rounds. I think Merab is going to get it. O'Malley mentioned as much in his post-fight interview. And also, by the way, him just shutting down Joe Rogan on the effectiveness of low kicks was also hilarious. Thank you, Sean O'Malley, for that. But I think Merab will probably get the title fight next. I think O'Malley will be looking at Sandhagen. It's either Sandhagen or Umar if you're not getting a title fight. And I think you would rather Sandhagen. So that will probably be next for O'Malley. And I think he's actually going to be a victim of how entertaining he can be. Merab, outside of a title fight, who else do you want to see him be matched up against? Whereas Sean O'Malley, you can look and go, okay, well, he lost to Merab, who was a wrestler. So here we'll put him against Umar and see the development against another top-level wrestler. Or here, him versus Sandhagen, people are clamouring for that. People wanted that on the Whitehouse card. We'll give them that at the end of the year. If he beats Sandhagen, he can then face the champion. Hopefully it's Peter Yan. God help us if it's Merab. If Merab wins, that is disastrous for O'Malley, because they might not give him the third fight because he was beaten so handedly in the second one. But where were we? Yeah, so Sean O'Malley knocks out Eamon Zahabi, does the salute, and in an interview after the fact, he said that the Sphere left a bad taste in his mouth. He, of course, lost to Merab Dvalishvili because he prided himself on being able to perform on any stage. The Apex, in the arenas, now at the Whitehouse. He was happy that he was able to sort of rectify that loss on a big stage, and he wanted to show that he could perform on any stage at any level. Here he is in front of the president at the White House, getting a knockout victory, a walk-off KO, and he needed this, and the reaction from the Ellipse. 80,000 people they said were there. I don't know the validity to it. I'm going to take their word for it. The reaction to that was amazing. It clearly meant a lot to Sean O'Malley, and it's great to see him get another knockout and get back on the horse, because I say back on the horse, he beat Song Yadong, but he needed a knockout. You know, he needed a statement performance, and he got it here against Zahabi. And I like to see the entertaining fighters get entertaining finishes, because we then get to see more of them at the top of the card. And they're the representatives for the sport. You know, when you're showing people MMA fights and you're trying to get somebody into the sport, you're going to show them the high level stuff. And if the people at the top are entertaining to watch, that's very beneficial for the sport. And Sean O'Malley is one of those guys. So I was very happy to see him win. He called his shot. He said he was going to get a knockout, and he did. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, for O'Malley versus Jan next. It's probably going to be Sandhagen though, and that'll still be a good fight. I'm still backing O'Malley and hoping that he can get that win. And then we can get Jan after he schools Merab in 50-45s him again. We can all dream. So that's it for this one. The next video will be matchmaking, the end of the Whitehouse content. I was thinking about making a video on the referees' just ineptitude, but I'm done with it. You know what I mean? I'm over it. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. My last 3 videos, the Pereira Gan video, the Topuria Gaethje video, and now this one has been, you know, filled with ranting and raving about stupid people. And I'm sorry if this somehow finds its way to Goddard, Herb Dean or Herzog. Can you argue with any of the things that I've said? That you shouldn't have let Ilia Topuria go out against the doctor's orders, against the corner's wishes. You know what I mean? You still let him go out there. Herb Dean, you're looking at illegal back of the head shots and you do nothing about it. Can you argue that? Jason Herzog going to the world champion, and I get that this wasn't at this event exactly, but it was still in recent enough history to look at it and go, here, you just watched Cyril Gane eye poke this guy, right? And that is off the back of you going in to the world champion's locker room and telling him that cheating works and expect cheating. Expect the other guy to not play by the rules, and I can't really do anything about it. You know what I mean? Can you argue any of the points that I said? And I don't want to leave this video on a sour note. So you know what? Just let it go. Shout out to Sean O'Malley and Bo Nickel and Lopez, all the winners, all the losers, except Cyril Gane. The next video will be matchmaking. That will be the end of the Whitehouse content as we look to the future and the ramifications of the Whitehouse card. What comes from these results? What will be set up for the rest of the year? And then beyond. Join me then, coming up really soon. See you all there.